Hello, I'm Ron Waters, and today's lesson is traffic patterns. Nearly every VFR flight begins and ends in a traffic pattern. Airports are extremely busy environments, and proper procedures are required to keep everyone safe and traffic flowing. At the end of this lesson, the student pilot should be able to explain the elements of airport traffic patterns and proper traffic pattern procedures, including correct pattern distances, how to ensure adequate spacing, visual scanning, and collision avoidance, towered and non-towered pattern operations, including how to determine the runway in use and pattern entries, the importance of wind correction in the traffic pattern, and right-of-way rules. During each flight, the student pilot demonstrates the ability to comply with traffic pattern procedures and ATC instructions. Also, to correct for wind drift and maintain appropriate spacing from other aircraft in the traffic pattern. Maintain traffic pattern altitude plus or minus 100 feet and the appropriate airspeed at plus or minus 10 knots. For this lesson, I will be referencing the Airman's Information Manual, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, and the Airplane Flying Handbook, as well as some advisory circulars from the FAA. These are all available for free download at faa.gov. The airport traffic pattern is simply a rectangular flight path that allows the aircraft to take off from a runway and circle back to land again on the same runway. The first portion of the flight is called the upwind or departure leg. It is called this because airplanes normally take off from a runway which faces into the wind. The departure leg is used to climb to a safe altitude before making any turns. If staying in the pattern, it is recommended that you climb to at least 700 feet AGL before turning crosswind. If you are departing the traffic pattern, it is recommended that you fly upwind to at least 1,000 feet AGL. Crosswind. Once you have reached 300 feet below traffic pattern altitude, usually about 700 feet AGL, you turn left. This is called crosswind, as this leg is flying across the wind. All turns in the traffic pattern are normally left-hand turns. How do we know if a traffic pattern is standard or right-hand turns are required? Most airport traffic patterns are left-hand turns. If there is some reason that require a right-hand traffic pattern, it will be notated on the sectional chart by the letters RP at the airport information. Also, ForeFlight will have this information listed for you. ForeFlight makes it easy to add your traffic pattern information to your ForeFlight flight plan. It's under the Airport Runway tabs.
So let's say I wanted to go from KILM, Wilmington International, down to KHYW, Conway, Horry County Airport. I'll show you what that looks like here on the map. So here we are at Conway. So normally if I were going to fly this, I would have in my head how I'm going to enter the traffic pattern ahead of time. And let's say I wanted to use runway 4. So I would cross over, this is how I would do it. I'd cross over midfield, enter the downwind directly. But you can go up here to your flight plan tab, hit procedure, go to traffic pattern, runway 4, cross midfield direct, add to route, and then it just puts it on the map for you, and I think that's just a super cool trick.
If you budge your heading with the runway heading prior to takeoff, you can just fly the reciprocal on the downwind leg. This means that the takeoff heading is now at the 6 o'clock position in your directional gyro. Pick a landmark out in the distance and fly towards that. This will help with your wind correction. It's also on the downwind leg that you will configure your aircraft for landing. Perform the AGUMS check. Autopilot off, gas on both, undercarriage down and locked, mixture full rich, power set, and switches set. Reduce the power once you're abeam the numbers and add the first notch of flaps. You will begin your descent. Base leg. When you are about 45 degrees from the number end of the runway, begin your turn. As you're turning, ask yourself, am I high? Am I low? Am I fast? Am I slow? Make any corrections to power and pitch as you make your descending turn. And add the next notch of flaps and retrim your aircraft. At all non-towered airports, you'll want to make a call on the CTAF that lets everyone know you're on base for landing. Also, while you're on base, look over your shoulder and make sure that no one is on a straight-in approach. Be aware of what the wind is doing to you and maintain proper airspeed control.
We all know that landing is one of the more dangerous phases of a flight, and that base to final turn is a hotspot for accidents, especially when there are distractions. The standard circuit pattern has a 90-degree base to final turn. It's in publications, on the internet, even in some YouTube videos. Whilst too steep a turn on takeoff is also dangerous, the main problem is here in the base to final or graveyard turn, where airspeed and height are low and there's a precise target. There are several factors operating. First, stall speed increases exponentially with angle of bank. Let's say in level flight this particular aircraft stalls at 50 knots. At a 45-degree angle of bank it now stalls at 60 knots, and at a 60-degree angle the stall speed is 70 knots. Second, as the aircraft turns, the inner wing is decelerating towards its stall speed. Third, the aircraft is losing lift as it turns. In level flight, the lift generated by the wings is equal to the downforce due to the mass of the aeroplane, but in a bank turn that lift, perpendicular to the wings, is divided into smaller vertical and horizontal components, but the downforce is unchanged, so the aircraft starts to descend, and the pilot counters this with back pressure on the stick that increases the angle of attack and therefore the stall speed. The aerodynamics are worsened if the pilot overshoots and tightens the turn, slowing the inside wing even more and applying more back pressure, maybe aggravating the situation by yawing into the turn with the rudder. Ultimately, the wing on the inside of the turn may reach its critical angle of attack, stalls, drops, and the aircraft is too low to recover. It's usually fatal. In contrast, in the bad weather circuit, the pilot flies above the runway to the opposite threshold, climbs with a rate 1 turn onto the reciprocal heading at 600 feet AGL, flies that heading 20 to 30 seconds beyond the landing threshold, and then makes another rate 1 turn to line up with the runway again to land. Here there's a constant bank angle from downwind to final, vastly reducing the risk of stalling the wing on the inside of the turn. It's tighter than a normal circuit, but the same principle can apply to both. A military pilot showed me the method, and if you look at my videos where I've shown the track from downwind to final, you will see this pattern every time. So why is the graveyard turn still used, when a gentle curve from downwind to final must be so much safer? Leave a comment. And if you like this video, please click the like button and consider subscribing. It helps YouTube show you videos you may like, and it helps the channel of course. And thank you for watching.
Make your turn from base to final so that you will roll out on the runway center line. This is essentially the same heading as the upwind leg, but the airplane is landing instead of taking off. As you roll out of your turn, evaluate. Am I high? Am I low? Am I too fast? Am I too slow? How is my alignment to the center line? Make your corrections here. The first couple of times are tricky, but it will get easier with practice. Do this before you deploy your last set of flaps. Remember, the yoke is for speed control and the throttle is for altitude. At non-towered airports, make a call on CTAF letting people know where you are and what your intentions are. This will be helpful if there's anyone holding short or waiting to enter the runway. And always, be ready for a go-around.
Do you know your left from your right? Are you sure? There was a time when none of us did. Most children are going through it right now, and if you want to go back to those days, all it might take is a VFR cross-country flight. Time and again, students and experienced pilots alike find themselves mixing up their left and rights when figuring out how to enter a traffic pattern on a simple VFR flight. Let's work on some tricks to help us avoid these mistakes. Here, we're approaching Easton Airport in Maryland from the southeast. We've gotten the ATIS, which says runway 22 is in use. We see from the chart that runway 22 is right pattern, noted by the RP letters next to 22. Easton is a towered airport though, and the tower can put us on any side of the pattern they deem necessary. Usually they defer to convenience. What would be the most convenient entry for us coming from the southeast like this? We're going to use the directional gyro to help us visualize all this. But first, we should make sure it's set right and agrees with our magnetic compass in straight and level flight. We go ahead and correct it. Now, let's take a closer look at the DG. With your hand, start pointing your right hand down the direction of runway 22 so your fingers are pointing 220 degrees. Your fingers are pointing the way your aircraft will when it's lined up on final. Now take your left hand, point your fingers in the direction you're currently approaching from. This will always start pointing straight up, assuming we're pointed towards the airport. Now have your left hand, your airplane, enter the pattern the most convenient way possible. This will be straight ahead at first, then a right turn so our hands are now parallel, pointing in opposite directions. This is the downwind. Is it left downwind or right downwind? What side shall we make our turns in order to get on final? It's a left to base, then a left to final, so it's left traffic we're modeling here. This is what we can expect from tower. When you're doing this, always make sure your fingers are pointing the direction your aircraft is facing, both with the runway on your right hand and your pretend aircraft, your left hand. At the end of the exercise, both hands should have the fingers pointed the same way. Let's try another one. This time, we're going to the non-towered Ocean City Airport. We're coming from the northwest. We pick up the weather and hear winds at a 200 degrees. The chart supplement shows us these runways for Ocean City. With the winds at a 200, we'll want runway 20. It's left traffic, and with no tower to make any changes, that's what we should expect to fly here. With our DG set correctly and our aircraft pointed at the airport, we start by having one hand point the direction down the runway 20, fingers pointing the way the aircraft will face on final. Now, with the other hand, we start modeling our aircraft by pointing straight up on the DG. We need to be making left turns onto downwind, base, and final. We can't do that on the side of the runway we're coming from. That would be right traffic. We need to overfly, then left onto downwind, then left onto base, then left onto final. We'll announce on CTAF and use one of the FAA recommended pattern entries for non-towered fields, descending to pattern altitude, then making left turns to downwind, then left to base, then left onto final. One last check of the DG should confirm us pointing the direction of the runway 200 degrees, and confirm the numbers painted on the runway itself when you're close enough. Try this a few times in your chair flying and feel free to implement it in the cockpit too. I hope it helps with the airplane-induced dyslexia we're all prone to at times. Check out the Flight Insight website linked here and in the description for more.
Entering and leaving the traffic pattern. At tower-controlled fields, ATC will tell you how to enter the pattern and how to leave the pattern. There will be published procedures to follow. At non-towered airfields, you will enter the pattern by crossing over the field perpendicularly 500 feet above traffic pattern altitude. Fly out about 2 miles and then a descending right-hand turn to enter the pattern. When leaving the traffic pattern at a non-towered airfield, it's recommended that you make a 45-degree turn to the downwind side. This has been Airport Traffic Patterns. I'm Ron Waters. Thank you for watching.